Good morning and welcome to Unusual Activity powered by FinancialJuice.com with George Avedon and Milton Marmonides. Thank you for joining us this 9th of February 2015. Happy Monday morning to you folks. Certainly lots happening in the marketplace over the weekend into this morning. We have the S&P futures lower by just about 11 handles this morning at 20.42 even. We have the crude oil, West Texas Intermediate crude, higher by 59 cents at $52.28. We have gold higher by $1.80 at 2036.30. So we're now below the 1250 mark. Remember, the 1200, 1250, 1300 are rather important levels in gold. We have the 10-year at 1.913, significant increase in the yield in the 10-year and the 5-year. 5-year at 1.456. 30-year at 2.482. We'll see if that 2.5 level is met. The DXY, the dollar index, at 94.754, higher by 0.056. The euro, the larger story here, folks, down to that 112 handle again, 1.1295, lower by 0.0028. Certainly lots of information coming through Europe with respect to Greece. It's a, pardon the pun, but it's a regular Greek tragedy in the making here, Greek drama, if you will. So we'll continue to monitor the situation in Europe, and clearly the markets are being affected by that, at least in the shorter term. We'll see how the rest of the day progresses. So let's get into Friday's day. Remember, we had non-farm payroll. We'll get into that in just a moment as well, just as a recap. If you weren't available on Friday morning, we'll recap that information for you as well. The Dow Jones Industrial Average on Friday was lower by 0.34% at 17,824.29. The S&P 500 was lower by 0.34% at 2055.47. The Nasdaq was lower by 0.43% at 4744.40. When taking a look at the overall markets, and volatility, certainly volatility continuing. Remember, for quite some time we had a rather, let's call it a more mundane environment with respect to volatility. We did see return to volatility in January, and that's rather impressive volatility as of late. So Friday, for most of the day, we're more or less positive in a relatively tight range, about an 8-handle range. For most of the morning into the early afternoon, we did see a drop towards the close and really finished just off the lows again at 2055.47. Let's get into a bit on, again, geopolitical news, what we're monitoring globally, certainly out of the Middle East, ISIL situations. There's certainly a lot happening. We know the headlines out of Jordan, Syria. We'll see if those at least have an effect on psyche and see how the market interprets many of that. Also, wanting to see if there's any other rhetoric or opinion coming out of Saudi Arabia. We know following the death of King Abdullah, coincidentally, we did see a rise in oil futures over the last, let's call it about a week and a half to 2 weeks. Again, nothing specific coming out of Saudi Arabia, outside of them indicating that there's no change in stance in their opinion on oil. But again, a remarkable coincidence in terms of that increase in oil prices as of late. We wanted to go over, and we'll get into certainly OPEC commenting this morning, and we'll get into that in just about a half a minute to a minute or so. But wanted to go over again the non-farm payroll. Actual was 257. Average hourly earnings were higher than anticipated at 0.5%. I know the attention is on Greece now, but again, we want to go back to this just for a moment. Unemployment rate rises 5.7% from the estimated 5.6. Private payrolls rise by 267. Government jobs fall by 10,000. Manufacturing payroll for January, 22,000 versus the 12,000. Prior revised from 17,000 to 26,000. So clearly we're getting a little bit of a kick in manufacturing. Participation rate rose to 62.9 in January from 62.7. Birth death rate negative 275,000, previous 15,000. Average hourly earnings in January jumped 0.5%, the most since November 2008. Why do we bring that up? We know that the Fed watches that rather closely, and again, we are anticipating the JOLTS report this week, so all eyes on that as well. We know that Janet Yellen, bit of a favorite to watch for Janet Yellen. Something we want to bring up, the Baltic Dry Index closes at lowest level ever. Baltic Dry Index at 554 points drops 0.9%. We report on this on a daily basis. This is the activity among container ships with respect to grains, raw materials. We feel that it's rather impressive that we see this consistent drop. We actually had just about a few minutes ago, we had a tweet coming out of Doug Cass, quote-unquote, ignore the all-time low in the Baltic Index today at your own risk. Folks, we've been discussing this for many months. Feels like many moons as well. But again, very important number to watch and see if there's any correlation. Remember, it tends to be a leading indicator. See if there's any correlation with respect to global economic activity. So we'll continue to watch that rather closely. Let's get into the Greek drama, if you will. We're going to list off some specific headlines that we feel that are important. EU warns Greece, don't assume Eurozone will accept your demands. This according to Reuters. Greek Finance Minister Varoufakis says end of crisis won't come from implementation of agreed reforms. Also, Varoufakis says Greek bailout package was doomed to fail. In this drama, if you will, of Greek news, few things to watch is GREK. This is the ETF for Greece. Also, the National Bank of Greece. NBG, Nancy Boy George. So something to keep in mind. Let's get into the OPEC headlines that are making news this morning. OPEC lowers forecast for 2015 for non-OPEC supply growth to 850,000 barrels per day. Also from OPEC, 2015 world oil demand growth forecast raised by 20,000 barrels per day to 1.17 million. OPEC monthly oil market report, 2015 crude demand forecast raised by 430,000 to 29.2 million barrels per day. Also, commentary. OPEC says demand for its crude will be lower year-on-year in first half of 2015, higher year-on-year in second half of 2015. OPEC cuts forecast for oil supply growth after price rout. So again, interesting commentary. Let's put that into the equation. We have crude oil now at 52.68. We'll see what the response is. We'll see if there's any activity in the underlying in the underlying oil names. So here so we'll take a look at during the day. We'll see if there's any specific news for the underlying oil names, specifically in the U.S., shale names, smaller names as well, and we'll continue to watch that as well. Let's actually bring up that this here is the oil ETFs, ETFs and ETNs that we typically watch. For example, OIH, that's one of the most popular ETFs to monitor. Some of these ETFs and ETNs are 2-3 times volatility. Some are on the short side, some are on the bear side, bullish side, of course. And remember, we want to see where certainly we had an increase in oil. We'll see how this continues to impact producers, and we'll see what the impact is on CPI and PPI data. Also, something also just coming through the wires today, Greek Finance Ministry official Varoufakis, our red lines are restructuring the debt, reducing primary surpluses, and dealing with bad loans. Again, this is out of the Greek Finance Ministry official. Our red lines are restructuring the debt, reducing primary surpluses, and dealing with bad loans. So again, we have a continuation with in the Greek news. So let's take a look where we were in overnight markets. We'll start off with the Asian markets this morning. We have, bear with us just for a moment, the Nikkei higher by 0.36% at 17,711.93. We have the Hang Seng lower by 0.64% at 24,521.00. Shanghai higher by 0.62% at 3095.12. So again, a little bit of a mixed market. In Asia, we know that Shanghai was rather volatile last week. We'll continue to monitor that as well. Let's take a look in Europe. We have the FTSE lower by 0.97% at 6787.08. We have the DAX in Germany lower by 1.94% at 10,635.91. CAC in Paris of 4618.02, lower by 1.56%, and the IBEX in Spain lower by 2.58% at 10,299.80. We know that the IBEX tends to be a little bit more on the volatile side than the rest of the pack in Europe. So again, we'll continue to monitor that rather closely. Let's jump into where we are on the commodities, energy, and raw materials. Again, S&P futures more or less the same as when we began the show, down by about 11 handles at 20.42. We have crude oil higher now by $1.04 at $52.75. We have gasoline higher by 0.02. 5 at 1.5841. Natural gas higher by 0.014 at 2.594. We're continuing to monitor the natural gas situation as it's consistently staying below the $3 mark. The heating oil higher by 0.0211 at 1.8602. Anecdotally, we are the Northeast is in the midst of a rather interesting winter, snow, cold weather. So again, we'll see what kind of impact we have on the demand side for natural gas and heating oil. Gold, we are higher by $3.40 at $1,238. We have silver now below that 17 mark at 0.236 at $16.93. And we have platinum lower by $2.60 at $1,219. We are seeing a consistent or precipitous decline towards that 1,200 level in the platinum, which is rather interesting. In cocoa, we have an increase by $50 this morning at $28.25. Rather interesting there. So let's jump into. So again, we're seeing some increase on the distillates. Overall, we'll see how that translates into the trading day. We're just about 15 minutes away from the open in New York. Let's take a look at the yield curve. We have we have the 5-year 1.451. So let's call it a mid-range on the 5-year compared to where we were about 5 to 6 weeks ago, and we were about a week ago or so. So we were 6 weeks ago, we were about 1.66 level on the 10 on the again about a week ago or so we were in that 1.20 level. So really smack dab in the middle of that range. We have the 10-year 1.911 and the 30-year 2.479. So we'll continue to monitor this yield curve compared to we were about a year ago. Much, well, flatter. I don't want to say much flatter. Let's not get over zealous here. But again, flatter than we were a year ago. Clearly, in the 2, 5, 10 and 30 years. So that's something we want to watch specifically in the 2-year. If that 2-year pops up a bit and the 30-year doesn't hold up as well in terms of yield, we could see a significantly flatter yield curve than we were a year ago. So let's jump into specific securities that we are monitoring this morning. Let's jump into various news that's going around news desks and reports. There's a very interesting HSBC admits control failures at Swiss unit. Certainly very we'll take a look at the interesting news coming out of there. Always interesting out of Swiss banks or the Swiss bank arms of larger banks, and it's great reads if when you have the opportunity. Really interesting things there. Qualcomm could announce a deal with China today, according to Reuters. We have this morning Qualcomm at $68.45 this morning. U.S. probe of UBS, Barclays, foreign exchange products expanded according to the Financial Times. UBS currently indicating at $17.17. BCS Barclays at $15.25. Motorola Solutions, MSI, to explore a possible sale, according to Bloomberg. Motorola currently at $70 even this morning. JP Morgan hiring practices in Asia under U.S. scrutiny at $57.55. ATU, Actuant Corp, currently indicating at $25.16, just off its, well, not just off its high this morning at $25.50 this morning. Shares could rise 25% according to Barron's. Remember, we always want to bring up specific articles in Barron's. We recommend the reading. Always a favorite among the Wall Street folks. ABBV. $57.10, could climb 30%, again, according to Barron's. Donaldson's, DCI, Donaldson Incorporated, $38.13. Could be good for long-term investors, according to Barron's. Let's jump into some other stocks that are making news this morning. PPHM, Peregrine Pharmaceuticals at $1.31 this morning, says data shows PS targeting antibodies significantly enhance anti-tumor activity of immune checkpoint inhibitors, PD-1, CTLA-4. Again, currently at $1.31. Shake Shack, Longbow's Alton Stump initiates Shake Shack with underperform and a $21 per share price target. In morning this morning, we are lower in Shake Shack, $39.84. SPLS this morning, holder Starboard value reduced its stake, currently indicating $16.42 in Staples. Alibaba invests $590 million into Meizu, the iPhone clone in China. Interesting dynamics there. Alibaba at $85.55 in pre-market. LJPC announces SPA for Phase 3 trial of LJPC-501 in calamine-resistant hypotension. LJPC get this up for you folks. Lajola Pharmaceuticals, currently indicating at $17.34 this morning. ATOS, Atosa Genetics signs natural distribution agreement with Thermo Fisher Scientific for fuel site breast aspirator. Currently have the at $1.50. ROSG announces commercial partnership with Precipio Diagnostics. Currently, we're not getting anything this morning yet on Rosetta Genomics, ROSG. We'll continue to watch that. We're just about a little over 8 minutes to go before the morning bell. Carrick's pullback, a buying opportunity, says Cowen, currently indicating at $11.25 this morning. Carrick's Biopharmaceutical. McDonald's announces that global comparable sales decreased 1.8% in January. MCD, obviously currently at $93.25. Groupon, Breen Capital commenting that Groupon shares should be bought heading into Q4 results. This according to Breen. Indication currently at $7.43 this morning. ExxonMobil downgraded to hold from buy at Argus Research, currently at $91.34. As you're looking at the XOMs and other oil names, certainly you want to take a look at Halliburton. You want to certainly with Baker Hughes, SLB, Schlumberger as well, currently at $86. Could see some interesting dynamics there this morning. MU Jeffries lists reasons to buy Micron after pullback, currently at $28.80 this morning. Apple, price target raised at Canaccord. Apple this morning certainly has been on a bit of a tear as of late. Currently this morning at 118.53. We can take a look at the daily chart on this. Certainly rather impressive, certainly recently with the earnings. We had a little bit of a, I don't want to call it a lull, folks, but certainly it reached back in November. We had this close to 120 high. We hit that high of 120.51. And then really for November, December, really lower, if you will, right in between that 105, 115 range. Broke out of that. We had a little bit of a gap up several days ago, and then coming up to that 120.51. HABT Habit Restaurants initiated with the buy at Longbow. Excuse me. Let's get the stock up here. HABT. We'll see what it's doing in the AM here. $32.10 this morning. LinkedIn price target raised to 300 from 250. At Wunderlich at $262.05. Intel, INTC, Hamburger Parkas upgrades Intel to neutral, currently at $33.10 in pre-market. DO, Diamond Offshore Drilling at $30.85, suspending special dividend. So let's get into some insider transactions, noted insider transactions this morning. SCIO, Diamond Corp, we currently have not much on the initial morning move, but we did have a $153,000 purchase. We can take a look at CRR. Carbo Ceramics at $37.19. We have a $700,000 purchase there. US Steel at $23.20. $1 million purchase by the CFO. IBTX, independent bank group. We have just about an $80,000 purchase at not indicating anything yet. AVHI, we had a $150,000 purchase by the CEO. Let's jump into the syndicates this morning, and we have ANCI. Not much activity there, but does file to sell $15 million worth of common stock. JCI files automatic mixed shelf security. We had a close near $48.63. Remember, mixed shelf securities is anything from common preferreds, debt, convertibles. It really could be a mixed bag for that. Marcus and Millichap MMI files to sell 4.6 million shares of common stock to holders. And we currently have this morning at $37.29. POZN, Posen Inc., we currently have $6.68. Files to sell 8.5 million shares of common stock. So, folks, as we prepare for the open here, we are lower by 10 handles this morning at 2042 or 2043 even. We have crude oil higher by $1.15 at $52.83. We have gold at 2037.20, and we have the 10-year watching that rather closely at 1.918. Can we get into that 2% level? Folks, thanks for listening. This has been Unusual Activity, powered by FinancialJuice.com with George Avedon and Milton Marmonides. Thank you for joining us. Wish you a great day and good hunting.